Let me tell you about my boyfriend. The guy could sleep through absolutely anything. I'm talking about the kind of sleep where a marching band could walk through our bedroom, and he wouldn't even roll over. It's actually pretty impressive when you think about it, but also incredibly frustrating when you're the one trying to wake him up. We'd been together for about 2 years at this point, and I had learned to accept this quirk of his. Every single morning was like trying to wake up someone who'd been in a coma for a week. I'm not even exaggerating. His alarm would go off, and he'd somehow turn it off in his sleep without even opening his eyes. Multiple alarms? No problem for him. He'd developed this supernatural ability to silence them all without gaining consciousness. His friends used to joke about it all the time. They'd tell stories about college when they literally couldn't wake him up for his final exams. One time, his roommate had to pour a glass of cold water on him just to get him to a morning exam. Even then, he was confused about why he was wet and went back to sleep for another 10 minutes. I had tried everything you could possibly imagine. The gentle approach, obviously, where I'd softly shake his shoulder and whisper his name. That never worked. Then I'd progress to the slightly more aggressive methods like pulling the blanket off him completely. He'd just curl up in a ball and keep sleeping. Opening all the curtains to let the bright morning sun hit his face. He'd just throw his arm over his eyes and continue snoring. I even bought one of those alarm clocks that's supposed to be impossible to ignore. You know, the ones that sound like a fire truck is parked in your bedroom? Well, he somehow managed to ignore it too. The neighbors probably hated us, but my boyfriend? He slept like a baby through the whole thing. But this particular Saturday morning was different. We had something really important planned. After weeks of trying, I had finally managed to get us a reservation at this amazing brunch place downtown. It was one of those spots that everyone talks about, where people line up for hours just to get a table. But I'd called at exactly the right time and snagged us a spot at 10 in the morning. I was so excited about it. They apparently made the best pancakes in the entire city, and their coffee was supposed to be incredible. Plus, we hadn't been out for a nice breakfast together in months because of our crazy work schedules. This was going to be our special morning, and I was determined not to let his sleeping habits ruin it. The problem was, I knew exactly how this morning was going to go. I'd set 3 alarms on my phone, 2 on his phone, and even asked his mom to call him at 9. But deep down, I knew that none of these things would actually work. They never did. My boyfriend had a special talent for sleeping through everything, and I mean everything. As I lay there that morning, watching him sleep peacefully at 8:30, I started to feel that familiar frustration building up. His face looked so calm and relaxed, without a care in the world. Meanwhile, I was already stressed about whether we'd make it to our reservation on time. I'd been looking forward to this for weeks, and the thought of missing it because he couldn't wake up was making me anxious. I looked at the clock on my phone. We had about an hour and 15 minutes before we needed to leave the house. That should be plenty of time, right? Wrong. With him, you needed at least 45 minutes just for the waking up process. Then another 30 minutes for him to actually get ready. It was going to be tight. I decided right then and there that today was going to be different. I wasn't going to use any of my usual methods. They'd all failed before, and they would fail again. No, today I needed to think outside the box. I needed to come up with something so creative, so unexpected, that even his superhuman sleeping abilities couldn't resist it. I sat up in bed and looked around our room, searching for inspiration. There had to be something I could use, some way to guarantee that he'd wake up. I wasn't going to miss this brunch reservation. Not after all the effort I'd put into getting it. My eyes scanned the room, looking for anything that might help me in my mission to wake up the world's deepest sleeper. The first alarm on my phone went off at 8:45. I quickly silenced it before it could disturb my own peace, knowing full well it wouldn't do anything to wake him up anyway. I looked over at him, still sleeping soundly, his chest rising and falling in that steady rhythm that meant he was completely out. I decided to start with the basics, even though I knew they wouldn't work. Maybe today would be different, I thought. Though I didn't really believe it, I reached over and gently placed my hand on his shoulder, giving it a soft shake. "Hey, time to wake up," I said in a normal voice. "We need to get ready for brunch." Nothing, not even a flutter of his eyelids. He just kept breathing deeply, lost somewhere in whatever dream he was having. I shook a little harder this time, actually moving his whole body back and forth. "Come on, seriously. We have that reservation, remember?" I said a bit louder. He made a sound. Finally, a response. But it wasn't what I was hoping for. It was just a grunt, followed by him turning over to his other side, facing away from me now. Great. Just great. I got out of bed and walked around to his side. His phone started buzzing on the nightstand, the first of his alarms going off. The screen lit up with the time. 9 o'clock. Perfect timing, except for the fact that he wasn't responding to it at all. I watched as he somehow reached out, his eyes still completely closed, and swiped at the phone until the alarm stopped. Then his arm flopped back down onto the bed. "Are you kidding me right now?" I said out loud, even though I knew he couldn't hear me. I picked up his phone and set another alarm for 2 minutes later. When it went off, the same thing happened. He turned it off without waking up. I tried it again. Same result. This guy had seriously mastered the art of alarm dismissal while unconscious. Okay, time for phase 2. I grabbed the corner of our comforter and yanked it completely off the bed. The cool morning air hit his body, and I waited for his reaction. He scrunched up his face a little, pulled his knees toward his chest, and that was it. He just lay there in his t-shirt and pajama pants, still sleeping. "You have got to be kidding me," I muttered. I walked over to the window and pulled open the curtains with more force than necessary. Bright sunlight flooded into the room. It was a beautiful morning outside, and here was my boyfriend, missing all of it because he was too busy being unconscious. The light hit his face directly. Surely this would do it. Right? Wrong again. He just threw his forearm across his eyes, blocking out the sun, and continued sleeping. I stood there with my hands on my hips, staring at him in disbelief. I checked my phone. 9:15. We had 45 minutes before we needed to walk out the door. This was getting serious now. I went to the bathroom and filled up a small cup with cold water. I wasn't going to dump it on him or anything crazy like that, but maybe just a few drops on his face would do the trick. I walked back to the bedroom and very carefully let a few drops fall onto his forehead. His nose twitched. His hand came up and wiped at his face, like he was brushing away a bug or something. Then, incredibly, he went right back to sleeping. The water drops rolled down the side of his face onto the pillow, and he didn't care at all. At this point, I had to laugh. It was either laugh or scream in frustration, and laughing seemed like the better option. This was absolutely ridiculous. What kind of person sleeps through all of this? I walked back to the doorway and just stood there, looking at him. My mind was racing, trying to think of what I could possibly do to wake him up. We'd been through this routine so many times before, and I'd never found a solution that actually worked. But today had to be different. Today, we had somewhere important to be. That's when I heard a soft meow from the hallway. Our cat, Mr. Whiskers, was sitting there looking at me with those big green eyes. He meowed again, probably wondering why everyone was awake so early on a Saturday. Well, not everyone was awake, obviously. I looked at the cat. Then I looked at my sleeping boyfriend. Then back at the cat. And suddenly, an idea popped into my head. It was crazy. It was weird. It might not even work. But it was definitely something I'd never tried before. I walked past Mr. Whiskers into the kitchen, and he followed me, probably hoping I was going to feed him. And you know what? I was. But not in the usual way. I opened the kitchen cabinet where we kept the cat food. Mr. Whiskers immediately started weaving between my legs, meowing louder now, doing that excited little dance that cats do when they think food is coming. I looked at the dry food, then at the canned food. The canned food would be perfect. I grabbed a can of tuna-flavored cat food and popped it open. The smell hit me immediately, that distinct fishy scent that cats go absolutely crazy for. Mr. Whiskers was practically climbing up my leg now, meowing nonstop. I'd never seen him so excited for breakfast before. "Shh, quiet down," I whispered to him, even though I knew my boyfriend wouldn't wake up from a little cat noise. "We're going on a special mission. I scooped out some of the wet food with a spoon and put it in a small bowl. Then I had another idea. I grabbed the can itself, too. This was going to require some creativity. Mr. Whiskers watched my every move, his tail swishing back and forth with anticipation. We walked back to the bedroom together, me carrying the bowl and can, the cat trotting along beside me with his tail straight up in the air. When we got to the doorway, I paused and looked at my boyfriend one more time. He was still sleeping peacefully, completely unaware of what was about to happen. I set the bowl down on the floor for a moment and took out my phone. If this was going to work, I absolutely had to record it. This was either going to be the funniest thing ever or a complete disaster, and either way, I wanted video evidence. I positioned my phone on the dresser, angled it toward the bed, and hit record. The red dot appeared on the screen. Perfect. Now for the actual plan. I picked up the bowl again and walked quietly to the bed. Mr. Whiskers followed right behind me, his nose in the air, completely focused on that food. I knelt down beside the bed and looked at my boyfriend's peaceful face. Part of me felt a little bad about what I was about to do. But then I remembered our brunch reservation, and all guilt disappeared. Very carefully, I took a tiny bit of the tuna cat food on my finger and dabbed it on his shoulder. Then another small bit on his upper arm. Then a little on his collarbone. I was being strategic about it, creating a trail that would make Mr. Whiskers have to climb on him to reach all of it. The final piece went right on his neck, just below his ear. I stepped back to admire my work. From a distance, you couldn't really see the food, but you could definitely smell it if you were close enough. And Mr. Whiskers was definitely close enough. The cat didn't need any encouragement. As soon as I stepped back, he jumped up onto the bed with the grace and determination that only a hungry cat can have. He went straight for the food on my boyfriend's shoulder, his rough tongue getting to work immediately. I backed up toward where my phone was recording, trying not to laugh already. This was actually happening. Mr. Whiskers was now fully committed to his mission. Licking away at the tuna on my boyfriend's arm, his sandpaper tongue made little scratching sounds as it worked across the skin. My boyfriend's face twitched, his eyebrows furrowed just a bit. But he still didn't wake up. Mr. Whiskers moved to the collarbone area now, and I could see my boyfriend's shoulder scrunch up slightly, like he was trying to brush something away in his sleep. The cat was relentless, though. He'd found the good stuff and wasn't about to give up now. He made his way up to the neck, where I'd placed the last bit of food, and that's when things started to get really interesting. My boyfriend's hand came up and brushed at his neck, but Mr. Whiskers just ducked under it and kept licking. The cold, wet nose pressed against the skin, the scratchy tongue working away, and then finally, I saw his eyes start to flutter. Mr. Whiskers, sensing that his food source might be moving soon, got more aggressive with his licking. He pressed his paws onto my boyfriend's chest for better leverage, and really went to town on that spot behind his ear. I had to bite my lip to keep from laughing out loud. This was the most ridiculous thing I'd ever seen. And it was actually working. After all those failed attempts, after all those ignored alarms and removed blankets, it was a cat with tuna breath that was finally going to wake him up. My boyfriend's eyes opened slightly, still confused and half asleep. He turned his head a little and came face to face with Mr. Whiskers, who was now determinedly licking his jawline. The confusion on his face was absolutely priceless. His eyes went from barely open to wide open in about half a second. He blinked a few times, like he was trying to figure out if this was real life or some weird dream he was having. Mr. Whiskers, completely unbothered by the human waking up beneath him, just kept right on licking. Then it happened. My boyfriend let out this surprised yelp, kind of like a mix between a shout and a gasp. His whole body jerked upward, and he tried to sit up quickly. Mr. Whiskers, startled by the sudden movement, jumped off the bed and landed on the floor with a thud. But the cat wasn't giving up that easily. My boyfriend sat there, bolt upright in bed, his hair sticking up in every direction, his eyes still trying to focus on what was happening. He looked down at his chest, saw the wet spots where Mr. Whiskers had been licking, and then touched his neck where he could still feel the moisture. "What in the world?" he said, his voice rough from sleep. "Why is there cat spit all over me?" That's when he looked up and saw me standing there by the dresser. I had my hand over my mouth, trying desperately not to burst out laughing. But the moment our eyes met, I couldn't hold it in anymore. I started laughing so hard that I had to lean against the dresser for support. Did you put cat food on me?" he asked, his voice a mix of disbelief and confusion. I couldn't even answer him. I was laughing too hard. Tears were starting to form in my eyes. The look on his face when he woke up, that pure confusion and shock, kept replaying in my mind and making me laugh even harder. Mr. Whiskers, meanwhile, had jumped right back up on the bed. He was determined to finish his breakfast. And he'd spotted another piece of tuna on my boyfriend's arm. Before anyone could stop him, he went right back to licking, this time on the forearm. My boyfriend looked down at the cat, then at his arm, and finally pieced together what had happened. "You used tuna to wake me up? With the cat?" I nodded, still laughing, unable to form words. He looked at Mr. Whiskers, who was now aggressively sniffing around the bedsheets looking for any remaining pieces of food. The cat checked his chest area, then moved up toward his shoulder again. "There's more on me, isn't there?" he asked, looking down at himself like he was inspecting for evidence. "Maybe a little bit," I managed to say between giggles. "On your shoulder and your neck area." He reached up and touched his neck, feeling the sticky residue that Mr. Whiskers had left behind. This is insane. This is absolutely insane. But then something amazing happened. The corners of his mouth started to twitch. He tried to keep a straight face, tried to look annoyed, but he couldn't do it. A smile broke through, and then he started chuckling too. "I cannot believe you did this," he said, shaking his head. Of all the ways to wake someone up, Mr. Whiskers had now moved to sniffing his armpit area, which apparently was very interesting to the cat. My boyfriend's arm shot down to his side. Okay, that's enough. That tickles." The cat looked offended that his investigation was being cut short, but he'd eaten most of the tuna by this point anyway. He sat down on the bed and started licking his paws, looking very satisfied with his morning adventure. I grabbed my phone from the dresser and stopped the recording. I got the whole thing on video. His eyes went wide. "You recorded this?" "Of course I recorded it." This was either going to be hilarious or a complete disaster. Either way, I needed proof. He held out his hand. "Let me see it." I brought the phone over and sat down on the bed next to him. We watched the video together. And I swear it was even funnier the second time. Seeing him wake up in confusion, the cat relentlessly licking him, his shocked expression when he realized what was happening. It was comedy gold. By the end of the video, we were both cracking up. Even Mr. Whiskers seemed interested, looking at the phone screen where a tiny version of himself was busy licking my boyfriend's shoulder. "I look so confused," he said, laughing. "Like I couldn't figure out what century I was in." "You also have tuna juice on your neck," I pointed out. He touched his neck again and made a face. "Yeah. I really need to shower now. This is so weird." I looked at the clock on my phone. 9:40. "We have 20 minutes before we need to leave." His eyes got big. 20 minutes? Why didn't you wake me up sooner?" I just stared at him. "Are you serious right now? I've been trying to wake you up for almost an hour." The tuna cat attack was Plan Z. 7. He had the decency to look embarrassed. "Oh. Right. Sorry about that." "Sorry? You literally slept through everything. I tried alarms, I pulled the covers off, I even sprinkled water on you." "You did?" He seemed genuinely surprised. "I don't remember any of that." "That's because you were too busy being unconscious." My boyfriend jumped out of bed, finally fully awake now, thanks to Mr. Whiskers and his enthusiastic breakfast routine. Okay. I'm up now. Give me 15 minutes and I'll be ready." 15 minutes? It takes you 15 minutes just to pick out which shirt to wear. "Not today," he said, already heading toward the bathroom. "Today I'm motivated. I'm not going to be the reason we miss brunch because I got woken up by a cat eating tuna off my body." I could hear the shower turn on, and true to his word, he was moving fast. While he was getting ready, I re-watched the video on my phone. It really was incredibly funny. The way Mr. Whiskers was so focused on his mission, the gradual awakening process, the final moment of realization. It was all perfect. I sent the video to myself as a backup and then to my best friend with a message saying, "You won't believe how I woke him up today." She responded almost immediately with a bunch of laughing emojis and, "I need to hear this story." Mr. Whiskers had curled up in the warm spot on the bed where my boyfriend had been sleeping. He looked very pleased with himself, licking his whiskers and occasionally yawning. He had no idea he'd just participated in what was probably the most creative wake-up call in history. My boyfriend emerged from the bathroom in record time, his hair still slightly damp, but looking presentable. He threw on some clothes quickly, grabbing the first clean shirt he found and not overthinking it like he usually did. "See? 15 minutes, he said, checking his phone. "Well, 17 minutes, but close enough. We actually made it out the door with a few minutes to spare." As we walked to the car, he was still finding tiny bits of tuna in his hair. "I'm going to smell like cat food all through brunch, aren't I?" "Probably a little bit," I admitted. "But hey, at least you're awake." During the drive to the restaurant, he kept shaking his head and laughing about the whole situation. "I still can't believe you did that. That's like something out of a comedy movie." "Desperate times call for desperate measures," I said. "Besides, it worked. Didn't it?" "It definitely worked. I've never been so confused waking up in my entire life. I thought I was having a nightmare about being attacked by a giant cat or something." We got to the restaurant right on time and were seated at a nice table by the window. The place really was as amazing as everyone said. The menu looked incredible, and the smell of fresh coffee and pancakes filled the air. While we were waiting for our food, he pulled out his phone. "I'm sending that video to the guys. They're never going to believe this." "Wait, you want to share that? Are you kidding? This is legendary. Do you know how long they've been making fun of me for being impossible to wake up? This is the ultimate story." And share it he did. Within minutes, his phone was blowing up with responses from his friends. They were all dying laughing. One of them replied, "This is the best thing I've seen all year." Another one said, "Your girlfriend is a genius. I'm using this method next time my roommate won't wake up." Our food arrived, and it really was as delicious as promised. The pancakes were fluffy and perfect. The bacon was crispy, and the coffee was strong and rich. As we ate, we kept coming back to the video, watching it again, and showing it to each other from different angles. "The best part is Mr. Whiskers' determination," he said between bites of pancake. "That cat was on a mission. He takes his breakfast very seriously," I agreed. By the time we finished eating, the video had been shared with more people. His mom called, having seen it from his brother, and she was laughing so hard she could barely talk. "I've been trying to wake you up easily your whole life," she said. "I wish I'd thought of the cat food trick when you were a kid." On the way home, he was still getting messages about it. The story was spreading through our friend group like wildfire. Everyone wanted to know the details, wanted to share their own stories about trying to wake him up over the years. "You know what this means, right?" he said as we pulled into our driveway. "This is going to be the story that gets told at every party for the rest of our lives." "At least it's a funny story," I said. "True. Though I'm now known as the guy who got woken up by a cat eating tuna off his body. That's going to be my legacy." Number 5. We walked back into the house, and Mr. Whiskers was waiting by the door, meowing for his afternoon snack. My boyfriend looked at the cat, then at me. "You know what? I think I owe him a treat for helping you out this morning, even if it was at my expense." He went to the kitchen and gave Mr. Whiskers some extra treats. The cat munched happily, completely unaware that he'd become an internet star among our friends. Later that evening, we were sitting on the couch, and he was looking through all the responses to the video. "You know, I've been thinking, maybe I should set like 5 alarms from now on, and actually get up when they go off. That would be nice," I said. "Though I have to admit, I don't think any wake-up call in the future is going to be as memorable as this one. Definitely not. This is peak wake-up call. It's all downhill from here. He put his arm around me and pulled me close. But seriously, thank you for being creative enough to actually get me up, and for caring enough about our plans to go through all that effort, even if it did involve covering me in cat food. You're welcome. Though next time maybe just wake up to your alarm? Deal. I'll try my best, but if I don't, please go easy on the tuna. We ended up making the video our phone wallpapers for a while, just as a reminder of the great tuna incident. Friends would come over and ask to hear the story in person, and we'd act it out, with me explaining my frustration, and him describing the confusion of waking up. Even months later, people would bring it up. Remember that time you woke him up with cat food? Became a common phrase at gatherings, and every single time, we'd laugh about it all over again, remembering that crazy Saturday morning when a clever girlfriend, a hungry cat, and a can of tuna made for the most hilarious wake-up call ever.